How are we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, and welcome back to another video. And welcome to part 2 of a video that I wasn't really expecting to make, but after reading some of the feedback left on yesterday's video, or what I will now be calling part 1, it felt that some people sort of got what we were getting to in the first video, but they still felt as if there was a few answers that weren't quite fully fleshed out as to how exactly I do make this gold, and how can I, how can they replicate it? That's really what I wanted to get to. So a quick rundown, a quick TLDR for those that maybe didn't watch the first part of this. The gold is quite simple. There are X amount of hours in a year, and over that last year I have amassed a grand total of just under 40 million gold. So you do some simple maths on it and you come out with 4,566 gold every single hour of every single day. But how do we actually go about doing that? In the last video, in part 1, we sort of spoke about how being a little bit more efficient with your time is the way to get going with this. As opposed to trying to just zerg your way through gold making. Instead of trying to make as much gold as you physically can every single hour of every single day, and spending the shortest time possible to reach a target or a milestone, it's often better to sort of try and be a little bit more effective with your time. And we also talked about what some of the negative side effects can be of trying to zerg the art of gold making. Think of it as a long game and you'll do much better. But so, let's begin with what I was, like I said, not planning to do a part 2, but we'll do it. So, let's dive straight in then. I'm even going to go through and show my notes today, as I think this might help make it more simplistic for people. The short answer, for those that just want an answer, how do I make this gold? It's quite simple. I play the game of middleman economics. This is also what's known as crafting. It's just a fancy name for crafting. Crafting is the primary way that I make my gold. It has been for a little while, but it's not been up until sort of Shadowlands to where I've really honed in and sort of optimized the system to work effectively. Now to the long answer though. For those that want to stick around and watch part 2 of this video, here comes the long answer. We're going to talk in a little bit more detail about exactly what I do and equally what I don't do. There's actually probably more to be learned from what I don't do than there is from what I do. But we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail, so let's go. The first thing that I stopped doing just before Shadowlands launched was I stopped trading my time for gold. This is crucial. This is crucial. That understanding this principle will do wonders for you and do wonders for your gold making. Now there is something I do still focus time towards gold making. There's no way you can make this gold without focusing some time to gold making. But what I try to do is make sure that the things I'm doing are working towards a long-term benefit. But what do I mean when I say trading time for gold? What do we mean by this? What is trading time for gold? Well, examples of this are things like gathering materials. I completely cut gathering out of my gold making regime completely. I went with the mindset of that if I have gold to spend, it makes way more sense to me to just spend the gold and get the materials that I need. More importantly, I can get them more often than not in whichever quantity that I need them in as well. Having this wonderful thing called the auction house is like having a cupboard that just has unlimited materials in it. Sure, you got to buy them, but the cupboard's always there, the door's always open, and only on very rare occasions is the cupboard empty. The cupboard is sometimes more expensive than you would like it to be, but we can deal with that. We can work around that, and there's ways to do it. But fundamentally, I stopped farming. I stopped gathering materials. I stopped farming for my items, and I started using that time to do something more constructive. Something else that I completely cut out of my routine. No more callings, no more daily quests. These are a massive time sink. We talk about gold sinks quite frequently in the gold making community. What are the gold sinks in the game? What are the things that Blizzard put in the game to draw gold out of the economy? Callings and daily quests are the opposite of that. They're ways that Blizzard use to input gold into the economy. But They take a long time to do. They take a lot of your time, and they can be very time inefficient, which is why I try and cut them out completely. We'll talk a little bit later in the video about how there are some reasons why I still do callings, but the reasons why I do them are very small. The next one on the list is obviously raw gold farming. This is a phenomenon that's always been around. Everybody tries to just farm for raw gold because they consider it cutting out the middleman. If you're gathering materials, you're not actually directly trading time for gold. You're trading your time to gather up resources that you then hope are valuable enough to somebody else for them to give you their gold for them. Raw gold farming cuts the middleman out. Raw gold farming, how many mobs can you kill in any given amount of time, and how much gold is going to be on their corpses. Raw gold farming became really popular towards the tail end of Battle for Azeroth because everybody was doing everything they possibly could to generate enough gold to buy the Longboy. Not all of us, but that's a story for another day. Raw gold farming is something that I never really did much of it anyway in the first place, but it's absolutely something I would recommend people just stop trying to do. If you're doing the quests for the fun of doing the quests, sure, you'll get a little bit of gold out of it, but don't be killing mobs just because they drop 10 silver each. It's a terrible use of time. Other ways of trading your time for gold is boosting. Boosting is a phenomenon that is becoming a lot more popular for people trying to make some quick and easy gold. Not all aspects of boosting are strictly trading time for gold. Those that are sort of spamming /2, trying to get their sort of referral fees, that is at the heart of it, they're trading their time and their efforts to make a little bit of gold, and the people providing the services are also doing the same. The reason that they're trading their time for gold is because the very second they stop running people through dungeons, or the very second they stop running people through their plus 12 Torghast runs or whatever it is, the very second they stop doing that, they stop getting paid. Which means that they are fundamentally trading time for gold, and it's something that I equally would not suggest doing. If you wish to do any of these activities, sure, feel free, go ahead, but be aware that if you want to make lots of gold, they're not really good things to be doing, and you can definitely be using the gold you already have to circumvent having to do any of this. So, with that out of the way, stopping trading time for gold was the number one thing that changed for me, that allowed me to start making an awful lot more gold. So what is it that I actually do? This is probably what's more important to a lot of people, and probably what people are here to understand. My focus is on small but incremental increases to my character or account's progression. And I also buy other people's time. We're going to talk about time a lot in this, because time is a huge factor. Buying materials, I consider buying materials the same as buying other people's time. They've spent time to go get something. I'm willing to give them a certain amount of gold in exchange for what they did during that time. I'm in essence buying other people's time. So things I tend to do a lot of, and this really helps me helps me make more gold and make it more easy to do as time goes on. Leveling alts. Having lots of alts is always useful. There's not been a single expansion ever that I can think of where having lots of alts hasn't been useful for gold making. It's not so useful currently. It's certainly not as useful as it has been, but let's go back only an expansion or two to things like alchemy, where you had a lot of different daily cooldowns that were quite good, but of course they were daily cooldowns. You could only press that button once a day unless you had lots of alts, and that's where having an alt army became quite effective. And other examples of good use of having lots of alts would be things, quite recently actually, Corthite crystals. If we take a look at the launch of patch 9.1, Corthite crystal value was through the roof. You could easily be seeing 2,000, 3,000 gold a piece for Corthite crystals, and you could get at least a small quantity of them very quickly. And so having lots of alts proved to be quite beneficial in that regard. Technically farming in my mind, but either way, still good use of your time at least to some degree. Leveling alts, though, for me, the main reason I look to level alts is to unlock the ability to be able to play with more professions. My primary way of making gold is professions. It's crafting stuff with professions, selling it for more than it costs me to craft, and then doing it again. Getting access to more professions means that I just have more options. If something becomes Flavor of the Month, it's already there and ready for me. Good example of Flavor of the Month professions is every time we have an expansion launch, Inscription goes boom. Inscription goes boom because of Dark Moon cards. Having a scribe there ready and waiting on an alt that's ready to hit the ground running is a massive advantage. As we play around mostly with legendaries nowadays, you need at least a couple of alts to fully get your legendary system up and running. It's helpful to have an enchanter, and it's equally helpful to pair up your legendary crafting professions on certain characters. So this is kind of the things that I spend a lot of my time on. We'll see in a minute that my actual routine of making this gold on a daily basis is not anything out of the ordinary. It's almost exactly what people would expect it to be. But any spare time that I'm willing to spend putting it towards improving my gold factory per se often goes into things like this. Grinding reps for patterns is a big one. The more patterns you have, the more possibilities you have to craft things that will then sell for more than they cost to craft. Real simple science on that one. Good example of how I'm utilizing this currently is that I'm trying to get a bunch of my alts. These, in fairness, are on other realms, not on the realm that we're sort of focused on today. But on other realms, I'm trying to get Death's Advance Honoured and Archivist's Codex Tier 4 on a bunch of crafting alts on other accounts. For the reason that they unlock Crafter's Mark 3 and Crafter's Mark of the Chained Isle. Now, whilst those markets probably haven't got too much life still left in them, I'd still rather have the pattern and have the ability to craft and sell those items than not have it. I see the question quite frequently of like, is it worth me to go and get these patterns? And I often think internally, that why would you not do it? You know categorically if you don't get the pattern, you're never going to make gold from that market because you can't craft the items. But if you do have the pattern, and you can craft it, there is at least a chance you can make gold from it. So why wouldn't you do it? Sure, if it takes you too long and you just don't want to, then sure, but that's your choice. Another example of something that I do focus on quite heavily, more so in the past, not so much at the moment, but it's because I'm a bit lazy at the moment. Mission tables. Mission tables is a big one. We've talked about mission tables a few times on the channel. Mission tables just print gold. They require that little bit of initial setup, sure, but once they're there, once they're up and running, it's literally 2 minutes a day. You log on to that character, you spam out a bunch of missions really, really quickly, and you log on the next day and they bring you a bunch of goodies, and you repeat the process again. It's one of the most efficient time sort of gold making methods in the game currently. The problem is you can only send out so many missions on any given character. This is where having an alt army comes into play. Some people are even going far out of their way to level up tens, hundreds of alts just to zerg through these mission tables as frequently as possible. I'm not taking it to that degree. I'm sticking to what I like and what I enjoy, and that's crafting. But I do understand the profit that can be made from mission tables. So that's a bunch of things I do. What does my daily routine look like, though? My daily routine is pretty simplistic. Like I said, it's not anything that people wouldn't expect. The first thing I do pretty much every single day is I check my bank toon. My bank toon actually has its own dedicated account. I play my characters on a separate account so I can have them both running at the same time. My bank toon, though, I log on, I relist anything that's expired. I might, for certain markets anyway, do some cancelling for undercuts, and I'll check material prices. This is a big one because I'm focusing heavily on crafting. and I'm choosing to not farm materials myself, it's of high importance to me that I get my materials at a good price. So checking the materials every single day is very, very worthwhile doing, as it gives you just a nice feeling for when there's good deals happening. If you play on multiple servers, you might have to start using add-ons to do this, utilizing things like Trade Skill Master to tell you what the market price sort of is on those materials on any given realm. But I don't play on that many realms, and so if we actually look in game, this thing I can show you, I actually use the default WoW UI. I don't use anything special for materials. A bunch of materials that I buy on a semi-regular basis, I have them starred, they show up in my favourites list, and as and when and if I see a good deal on something, I just buy it. You learn over time how many of these materials you need. It's something that just comes with practice. Every realm is going to be different. Some people need to buy 10,000 Leystrite ore every day. Some people don't even need to buy 10,000 Leystrite ore in a week. It's going to differ for you, dependent on how effective you are at crafting and selling. But, you know, it's something that you just keep your eyes on. And if you pay attention to it, you start to remember things and learn things. But it is true to say that, yes, getting the materials is key. So that's part of my daily routine. I do that every time. And then, on the days that I can be bothered, I'll do a quick cycle through my toons for mission tables. You can log on to the character. Like I said, if you happen to log them out standing next to the mission table, especially if you level that alt purely for the mission table anyway, you log in, you bang out a few missions, you log out, and you go to the next character. This whole routine, 10 to 20 minutes a day, really not that you know, it doesn't take a long time at all. I usually, even if I'm choosing to not really play World of Warcraft so much, I'll do my daily routine in the morning and I'll do it again before I go to bed. That means I'm hitting the auction house at least twice a day, and you know, every time I log back in, there's usually at least a little bit of something in the mailbox, which is nice. Weekly stuff though, what do we do on a weekly routine? Well, what we haven't talked about in any way, shape or form here is actually crafting the items that I actually sell. I try to keep my crafting, or recrafting as it should probably be referred to, I try to keep it on a weekly basis. Most of my restocking usually happens on a Saturday or a Sunday, just purely because of how my routine works. There's no real science behind why that's a thing, but I usually do my restocks on a Saturday or a Sunday. Occasionally, if I really run low on certain items, or if I completely sell out of a certain item, I might do a smaller, slightly less intensive restock during the week. But for the most part, I like to pile my restocks into one. I'd rather do one big restock than do 4 or 5 little restocks. And that all falls down to an efficiency thing again. Being efficient with your time is crucial. Weirdly, one of my biggest goals for gold making is to actually spend less time gold making rather than more. If I can spend less time gold making and make more gold, or even spend less time and make the same gold, I'm a happy man. I'm happy with that. No problems, no issues for me. So doing one bigger restock, I tend to find is far more efficient than like 4 or 5 little restocks. I'm flexible with this though. Like I said, if it's peak season, if it's patch week, there's a good chance I'm restocking every day. When the gold making is good, focus on it. I'm happy to spend a lot more time getting this stuff done when I know that there's a lot more rewards for doing it. But you know, once we've had 4 to 6 weeks of a new patch or a new content cycle, I tend to go back into sort of autopilot. By that point, I've probably got any new stuff, I've probably got it, and I've got it on my alts. So at that point, I'm just recrafting and reselling, and it goes into autopilot. And as frequent viewers of the channel will know, when things go into autopilot on one realm, that's when I switch my focus to another realm and I start expanding. I enjoy making gold. I'm happy to spend a couple of hours a day focused on gold making with no desire to make any more gold other than I just kind of enjoy doing it. So if I can get one realm, one server on autopilot mode that I can spend 10-20 minutes a day, I can then switch my efforts and spend an hour or two on another realm to start chipping away, to start leveling those alts, getting those professions in place, till ultimately that second realm is also on autopilot, and then you spend, instead of 10 to 20 minutes a day, you spend 40 to 60 minutes a day, yet you're making twice as much gold potentially. And we get into that snowball system that we were talking about in video 1. So yeah, any extra final thoughts, I suppose. Any extra time that I want to spend on gold making, I split it between these sorts of things. I do my best to avoid anything that is considered trading time for gold, unless you have some other reason to do it. Callings, for example, we did mention earlier that there is some reasons to do callings. Usually, the reason you might want to do callings is if you're trying to level professions, or more importantly, if you're grinding reputation to get those patterns. Callings are an efficient way of getting reputation, so there is some sort of crossover. There's no hard and fast rules with this. But there we go, boys and girls. I hope that sort of helps clarify a little bit more so on what I actually do to, get to a point where I make nearly 5,000 gold an hour every single hour of every single day. Quite clearly, it takes time to get this set up, and it takes time for it to get going, and it does take time for it to snowball. And so when you begin, yes, you probably should do some of that trading time for gold. But once you've got enough gold, what you consider as enough gold is up to you, but once you've got enough gold, start using that to help you move forward faster, and you will hopefully see some fantastic results from it. But I'll leave it there for today, boys and girls. I hope that clears up a few things. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give the video a like, hit that subscribe button maybe if you're new around here, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.